equity, diversity, inclusion models are wonderful initiatives for many professional organizations, including our education system. However, a lot of organizations try to, by status quo and default, embed reconciliation, cultural safety, and decolonization work into EDI work. But a big part of our work for systemic change and transformation is to differentiate and distinguish the two. EDI work has been around for a long time, over 50 years in the context of Canada, and we have no research or evidence to show that equity, diversity, inclusion models have elevated or raised Indigenous issues in the context of Canada. So reconciliation and Indigenous cultural safety are really new initiatives, and they need their own time and attention in our organizations to be able to survive and thrive. Um, and of course, to include us as Indigenous folks isn't to imply that we are not at home. And so a big part of our work, is through reconciliation. Organizations, schools can have both at the same time. They can complement one another. But it's important for us as professionals to understand that the two can complement one another, but are very much distinct. In the context of education, Indigenous cultural safety is kind of originating from the healthcare sector, but it definitely is applicable to all the other Canadian and colonial systems that scaffold our country. Education, social services, and most definitely our criminal justice system, as well as healthcare. By definition, Indigenous cultural safety and humility is an outcome based on respectful engagements that recognizes to address power imbalances that are inherent in our colonial systems, healthcare, education, justice, and social services. It results in an environment free of racism and discrimination where people feel safe, Indigenous peoples feel safe when accessing educational services. So while reconciliation, decolonization are wonderful things, to get there, we will need a workforce and systems to be culturally safer for Indigenous peoples. When it comes to truth at the center as a core theme in education and work that really does need to be done, often I think about and encourage others to think about, it's really about truth before reconciliation in the context of truth and reconciliation in our schools and in our education system. So when I think of truth at the center, what we really need to honor, recognize is that we work in an education system that is naturally and inherently colonial in nature. That means our education scaffolds colonial ideology, colonial values, and other colonial mechanisms that we don't always necessarily have an opportunity to slow down, pause, and reflect and see how colonial our systems really are. So when it comes to creating culturally safer environments for Indigenous students and other marginalized students who enter our education system, it's really examining that it's not going to play out just at an interpersonal level, but it's more of a systemic level. So centering the truth is that we do have colonial systems, and our education system, including all of our schools, whether it's elementary, secondary, private, or post-secondary, all will have elements of colonial ideology, values, and mechanisms that we will need to decolonize to reach reconciliation and to reach culturally safer education systems.